fairy tale. I know that kind of sounds a little, but it does. I mean, when I think of Esther, I think of two things. I think of course, a queen. But as a queen, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Cinderella. So, I mean, it's really a story of a young girl who was a Jewish girl, who was an orphan, who became queen of Persia. I mean, she was a Jew. And then part of her reminds me of the movie Brave, where Merida is a little Irish girl who has lots of bravery and a lot of things that happen that she had to do to conquer some things that were before her. So Esther just kind of reminds me of a warrior princess type of atmosphere. So a little bit of the backstory. Like I said, Esther was an orphan. She was a Jewish girl who was raised by her cousin Mordecai. So he was more like a father to her because I believe she was probably around 5 years old whenever he took her in. So she was basically raised up by him, and she had great respect for Mordecai. The king over Persia, do not even know how to pronounce his name. Does anybody know how to pronounce his name? Xerxes? Okay, that's how you, okay. So, because I was like, he was married to a queen, and she did not do as he liked, so he divorced her, got permission to divorce her, and so he was out scouting for another queen. And Esther stepped up to the plate. Like, she was like, I'm just going to give it my all and just see what happens, And so God showed her favor, and she actually became queen to the king. And there was also a newly appointed prime minister called Haman, and he despised Jews. When Haman walked through the crowd or rode his horse through the crowd, he expected everybody to bow down to him. And Mordecai did not. He said that he only bows to the one true God, and he does not bow to man. So Mordecai really stirred up the hatred in Haman. And because of that, Haman went to the king, asking the king for the heads, basically, of all the Jews, women, children, all the men, and the king set out a decree. Well, when Mordecai saw the decree and read the decree and realized what was happening, he entered into a time of mourning. And the Bible says he tore his clothes and wore sackcloth and ashes, and anybody who was a Jew, that's what they did when they were in mourning. And they were not even supposed to really be at the gates of the palace, but the Bible says that Mordecai, due to his mourning, was wailing at the gates of the palace, and Esther's attendants heard him. And we're going to pick the story up from where Mordecai delivered the message to Esther, because Esther did not know that the king was actually going to murder her family, like her and her family. This was her life. This was her people. And because the whole time Esther has kept it a secret that she was even Jew. So we're going to pick it up where Mordecai sends a message to Esther telling her what to do. And what he asked her to do was go before the king and plead to him to not do this to their people. And of course, back in those days, unless the queen was summoned by the king, she was not even supposed to be in front of him. No FaceTime. No FaceTime at all. She could be sentenced to death just for doing that. Her husband, the king, she's the queen, and she could not even be in front of him. And I think she had said, in one commentary that I read, they said that she had not been before him in 30 days. So because of that, Esther was sent a message back to Mordecai saying that if I do this, I could die. I could perish. And this is what he said in Esther 4:14. But if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance of the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So when I see Esther, not only do I see a princess or a queen, and a brave soul, but I also see that God gave her an opportunity. I see opportunity whenever I see Esther. Opportunity to be used by God and allow his power to work through her. How many times in our lives, I know I do this on a weekly basis probably, especially back when Carl and I were trying to buy this home. We lived out of boxes for months, and I would just say, every time we would do a purchase agreement, I just kept saying, well, as soon as we get to this date and time, as soon as we get through this week, as soon as this week of work is over with, if I could just get through Saturday, if I could just, when I get through too, then life is going to be great. I have said that so many times. I've caught myself saying that today. If I could just get through this afternoon, from work, and get home so I could be with all of you, because really this is where my heart is. I love my job, don't get me wrong, but, being with the family of God is where Carl and I's heart is. But I find myself using that a lot. So if we could just get through to wherever, life will be greater. How many missed opportunities do we miss on a daily basis because we're so rushed to get to the end of whatever obstacle we're facing? We've missed a lot of opportunities just by doing that because we're so focused on the end and not what's going on around us and at that time. So that's a lot of waste of time hoping for the greater that happens later, right? So I'm never living in the now when I do that. I'm never living in this moment whenever I'm rushed to get it over with, or rushed to, I have said it before, if I could just sleep till Sunday, or, just let me sleep through whatever is going on. Well, when you're asleep, you're not coherent to what's going on around you. You're not taking in. You're missing opportunities to witness. You're missing opportunities to share the word with people, to bring people to Jesus. You're missing just so many opportunities, a chance to show love to one another, a chance to make a difference in somebody else's life. You're missing those kinds of opportunities whenever you're wanting to get from now to the end and not live in the moment of today. But how many of you know that Esther really wanted to just get to the end of what was happening? Like she wanted to have this over and done with. I can only imagine what she was feeling on the inside of her, because of what her people were facing at the moment. But there was so much that happened from the time of the beginning of Esther's story to the end. There was so much that happens in between there. We mostly consider the last part of verse 14, for such a time as this. But notice the sentence just before it. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance of the Jews will arise from another place. From another place. That means that it's not going to happen in Esther's time. It will come later. It will come at the end. God's plan was to deliver the Jews, and he wanted to use Esther to do it. If she was unwilling or afraid, if she didn't have enough faith or trust in the one who put her in that position, God could have used someone else to carry out his plan. I don't know about you, but I don't want someone else fulfilling my purpose for what God created me for, to be on this planet. Each one of us have a purpose. We have a purpose that we were created for. And I don't want to miss that opportunity of what God has me here for. How many of you know that God's plan will prevail one way or the other? He is ultimate. It's going to happen. So he couldn't very well just use someone, but he could have very well used someone else, but he positioned Esther in the right place at the right time during the right battle. This is where the brave part comes in for me. Esther was about to face the battle that requires extreme bravery. Let's look at Esther 4:15 and 16. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it's against the law. And if I perish, I perish. That's bravery, to give your life for what God has called you to do. That is bravery. The bravery of Esther, to me, portrays the heart of a warrior princess. Anyone who knows me knows that I love the heart of a warrior. Arrows are my thing. So if you don't know that, you know that now. But I love arrows. I haven't even gotten my office set up yet, but in the other house, I had arrows, wooden arrows and different arrows all over the place, because to me, arrows represent God's direction for my life. So for me, I've always loved the thought of a warrior, and to be a warrior for Christ. That's why I love the Disney movie Brave. But anyway, Esther, in all her beauty and elegance, demonstrated courage and bravery. I have someone in my life who I think is a warrior princess. This person rarely is afraid, always willing to try almost anything. If you make your way into her heart, she will fight for you. She's often stubborn at times, and she rarely takes no for an answer. My warrior princess is my daughter, Kaylin. And God put her here tonight, y'all. She didn't even know I had written this. She had no clue. But God worked it out for her to be here. When she called me and said, Mom, I'm coming, I looked at Carl and I said, God is working it out for her to be here. She's going through some things that she's way braver than I am, than I've ever been. And I'm so proud of her. Sorry. But I'm in awe of the path that God has her on. And like Kaylin, like Esther, you know, she is to me that warrior princess. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, let's see, did I miss the whole side, y'all? I'm sorry. Okay, yes, I did. So how many know that when we go to battle, you have to have a weapon? Well, in the movie Brave, Meredith's weapon of choice was a bow and arrow, okay? Esther also had a weapon as she faced the battle of approaching the king. Remember, she could be put to death for even just going before him. But her weapon of choice was this. She called upon her people to fast and pray for her as she bravely approached the king. Sometimes bravery needs backup, y'all.
Yeah.
In the moment of our battle, we need to call on our people to pray. And more than that, remember that God's promises to always be with us. Because Deuteronomy 31:6 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you, nor will he forsake you. So claim the promises of God for your life. Stand on his word. Use the power he's given us to fulfill our purpose, because he has equipped us. He has equipped us with the weapons to use in any battle that faces us. And he is there before we are. So he's in it. He's already in it for us. So let's go back to Esther 4:14. For such a time as this. If Esther would have remained silent, the Jewish people and Esther and her family would have been massacred. The word did say, again, relief and deliverance would arise from another place, but again, not in her time. In your now and in your life, what is it that God is asking you to do? What opportunity is he giving you? Is it to be the relief and deliverance to others in your life? What areas have you been trying to get by with rather than seizing the moment, God has placed in front of you for such a time as this.